My name is Shelley Harris. I'm Director of Philanthropy at Frank Toby Jones, and I'm going to continue reading the Rita Mae Brown mystery, Cat on the Scent. Nalani left off at Chapter 8, and here we go. An open 1-pound can of gunpowder sat on the butcher block kitchen table. Paper cartridges laid out in rows like tiny trapezoidal tents covered one edge of the table. Ridley Kent bent his handsome head over the litter. Determined to out-authenticate everyone, he was rolling his own cartridges. It wasn't as easy to roll 60 grains of 2F black powder as he had anticipated. Rolling with both hands, he then fumbled with the tie-off. Outside, the rain beat down the kitchen window. It was a filthy night. "Damn it to hell," he exploded when the paper opened, spilling gunpowder over the table. Now he'd have to count out grains again. It occurred to him to line up 60 grains behind every piece of paper. That served the purpose, too, of calming him down so he wouldn't botch his next tie-off job. Archie Ingram came through the door, sending the carefully cut paper sailing around the room. "I could kill you, Archie." Archie hung his raincoat on the doorknob to drip. He surveyed the white papers, then knelt down, picking them up. "Get a grip. Do you know how long I've been sitting here with these cursed things? Half the day? 2 hours. It took 1 hour just to cut the paper. Right, wait, you've done your homework. After all, you could have cheated and bought ready-mades. Not me, plenty of others do. Here, let me show you how to do this." Archie sat down, took a flat knife, and scraped the 60 grains into the paper, rolling it so a tiny piece, the longest piece, struck over the final edge. He tied off the end. "Where'd you get the dowel?" "I made it." Ridley referred to the wooden dowel, about 1/2 inch, with a head cut like a bullet head or mini ball. Rolling the paper on this wooden dowel made the task more congenial, but Ridley's fingers, none too steady at any time of day, still couldn't tie off the cartridge. "And I suppose you'll go as an officer?" "Since I'm one of the few who can afford the gear, yes," came Ridley's testy reply. "Don't even think about giving an order. You give enough in real life." "What did officers do?" Ridley questioned, half laughing. "Die by the truckload." "Well, I've no intention of doing that. Anyway, the Union men fire over our heads, and we fire over theirs. Aren't the rules never to point a firearm directly at your opponent and not to ram a real ball down your rifle?" "Yes, but don't give orders. You're new to this, and even though you're a colonel—" "How perfect," Archie slyly said. "You don't give orders. You walk by the side of your men on the front corner." "I'll ride." "Ridley, you can't ride a hair of a horse. Walk or be an artillery officer." "All I have to do is walk along. I think I can manage that." "Listen, bonehead. Fair Harristine's worried about riding, and he can ride. None of the horses are accustomed to gunfire. You'll walk." "But I've got yellow trim on my uniform and a golden sash for my sword," Ridley protested. "Light blue, infantry. Don't make an ass of yourself. Take this back to Mrs. Wu and have her sew on blue facings. Her shop is that little building behind Rio Road Shopping Center. Just do what I tell you. I know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to see you make a fool of yourself." Ridley wanted to say, "You're making a fool out of your own self. Why worry about me?" Archie droned on. "We're going to shut up H. Vane. The man thinks he can run the world, pompous limey. He's upset because we're filling the rank with men who aren't true reenactors. I said we had to do it. The public will be in attendance, and we need this battle to warm up for the wilderness reenactment." "Still bodies in that wilderness," Ridley shuddered. "There's so many bodies in the ground in Virginia, you can't plow without hitting one, especially around Richmond." Maybe that's why our crops grow so well." Archie narrowed his greenish eyes. "You're not taking this seriously." Well, seriously enough to spend good money. Hell, Ridley, if you aren't throwing your money away on women, you've got room to talk? A thick auburn eyebrow jutted upward. Crimson washed over Archie's face. He blushed easily. A gentleman doesn't discuss those matters. Who said we were gentlemen? Ridley laughed. We were raised gentlemen, even if we can't always be gentlemen. A guilty conscience haunted the country commissioner. Archie, one of these days you're going to get caught, and if your wife doesn't kill you, somebody else will. A half smile gave Ridley a rakish air. You're a Casanova in disguise. What's the disguise? Archie liked the description more than he cared to admit. Pug ugly, Ridley laughed. Archie breathed in, thought a second, and then laughed himself. He rolled another cartridge. Charles Bronson wasn't classically handsome. Charles Bronson's ass would make your Sunday face, Ridley teased, for Arch was good-looking. Ridley, you really know how to hurt a guy. Archie's gloom lifted a bit. Ridley could make anyone laugh. His infectious spirit, too often fueled by booze, made him a great companion. Women adored him, and the compliment was returned. Ridley got up, returning with a 3-banded Enfield rifle. $480. Was I robbed? No, that's the going price. He polished the brass on the musket. If you're behind a line of infantry, you hold your rifle so that the first and second hands of your weapon are over the ear of one of your men. He pointed to the part of the barrel. That way no one will get a singed ear. They worked quietly, and then Ridley, his voice low, said, Arch, if you don't mend some fences, you're going to lose your commission seat. Mim's in a rage. Archie flared his nostrils. She is? Well, what did you expect? You acted like a jerk at the commission meeting. He smiled to soften his words. You didn't seem like yourself. Archie shrugged. I'm sick of being the bad guy in the county commission meetings. You're only the bad guy to the developers. Plenty of people think you're doing a fine job, and no one understands why you're so emotional about the reservoir, though. I'm on your side, Arch. That's why I'm telling you that what others won't tell you. You need to mend fences, he repeated. H. Vane is behind this. Well, he may be behind it, but I'm telling you, Mim's in front of it. Ridley put his cartridges in stacks of 10. And why did you deny Vane Tempest's request for a zoning variance last winter? Establishing a quarry on the north side of his land is a good idea. No one will see it, and it will create jobs. He needed better plans. Come on, Arch. His plan included a responsible solution to reclaim the pits. It was environmentally progressive. Ridley lowered his voice. Are you on the take? Archie's jaw fell slack, and Ridley pressed. That's what people are saying. I'll never tell, but I should like to know, because you're acting like you're a nickel short of a dime these days. People think hardline environmental groups are slipping you money. Crazy, but they're talking like that. Archie got up, heading for the door. Ridley ran after him. Arch, come on, Arch, I'm trying to help. Help? You accuse me of betraying the public's confidence? I don't want you to lose what you've worked so hard to get. Come on, sit down. Archie rejoined him. I am not on the take. Okay, Ridley paused. Hey, did you hear that Tommy Van Allen is missing? He's not missing. He's probably in Santa Fe or Buenos Aires, for God's sakes. That is the most self-indulgent man I've ever met. Rick Shaw called me. They're treating it as a missing persons case, and his plane is missing too. Well, I'm glad we never pitched in and bought that twin engine. I don't know how I could have fallen for that. It was fun, our flying club, but I don't get the power charge from flying that you guys do. Well, at least you could afford it. Archie absent-mindedly polished the brass bands on the rifle. Tommy and I already knew how to fly, of course, courtesy of the U.S. Air Force. And H. Vane learned in the RAF. Maybe being up in the air again reminded me too much of my service days, or maybe I really am up in the air. It was too close for comfort. Well, Blair sure learned quickly. I thought a pretty guy like that would chicken out. I'd rather he had dropped out instead of you. I can't warm to that guy. Ridley offered Archie a beer. Archie passed. He's not cold-blooded, but he's not hot-blooded either. Like last fall, when he had that little affair with Sarah Van Tempest. Arch interrupted. He did not. The hell he didn't. They were discreet about it, that's all. I can't believe she'd go to bed with Blair Bainbridge, Archie said with disgust. Well, it didn't last long. Maybe he got bored with her, or she got bored with him. Then, too, I wouldn't want H. Vane breathing down my neck. What's H. Vane expect, marrying a woman half his age? Ridley walked to the fridge. Drink a beer, buddy. You look peaked. Huh? Okay. Archie took the cold beer, peeling back the pop top. I know I've been irritable. Too much work, Ridley. It's just too much. My wife complains that she never sees me, and since she only complains when she does see me, I don't want to go home. He drank a long, slow swallow. Being a county commissioner can sometimes, well, let me put it this way. If there's a buffoon, an asshole, or a certifiable psycho, not only will I meet them campaigning, they'll show up in my office. And this reservoir stuff brings all of them out of the woodwork. Forget about it for a night. I'll make popcorn, and we can tell lies about the women we've conquered. Sounds good to me. Archie drained the beer can, got up, and fetched another. Chapter 9. The rain stopped Wednesday morning. That evening, after supper, Mrs. Murphy gathered Pewter and Tucker on the screened-in porch. 4 miles is too far in this muck. Let's wait a few more days, Pewter whined. For all we know, the plane will be gone by then. Mrs. Murphy sniffed the wind, a light breeze out of the west. I'm heading out. I'll go with you. Tucker's big ears moved forward. I'm staying home. Pewter sat down. Chicken, the dog teased her. I'm not chicken. I don't feel like getting dirty, especially since I've just given myself a bath. Well, let's go. Murphy opened the screen door, Tucker immediately behind her. The door flapped twice. Pewter watched them bound over the meadow by the barn. She felt a pang of missing out, but not enough to follow. She walked back inside, deciding to curl up on the 1930s chair with the mohair throw. She liked to snuggle in the mohair, but wished Harry were wealthy enough to afford cashmere. Pewter craved luxury. Reaching the first creek dividing Harry's property from Blair Bainbridge's, the cat and dog were stopped by high water. Oh, ugly. Tucker paced the bank. Let's go up to the beaver dam. If it's standing. Hasn't been that much water, come on. I hate those beavers, and Tucker did too. We'll be across before they know it. Excuse me. A quarter of a mile upstream, the log and sapling lodge dominated the creek along with the sturdy dam that the beavers had constructed. Carefully, Mrs. Murphy put one paw on the dam. She tested its sturdiness, then sped across, small splashes of water in her wake. Tucker whined but followed. Her progress wasn't as graceful, but she made it. They were halfway across Blair's easternmost meadow before the beavers emerged from their lodge to inspect their dam. Lights at Blair's place caught their attention. A white Land Rover was parked in the driveway. Wonder what Archie's doing at Blair's. Mrs. Murphy kept moving. Trying to borrow the Porsche? They laughed until they reached the ridge, about 700 feet above sea level. They paused at the top, which bristled with rock outcroppings. Although only 4 miles across, the terrain was rugged in parts. After catching her breath, Mrs. Murphy nudged Tucker. Ready? Yeah. They swept down the ridge, skirting the thorn creepers and the underbrush, where they startled rabbits and one lurking fox. Mrs. Murphy hoped the bobcat was hunting somewhere else tonight. The last creek had an upturned tree fallen over it. Mrs. Murphy danced across it, and Tucker chose to swim the creek. The abandoned buildings of the Urquhart farm shone silver in the moonlight, the slate roofs sparkling as though obsidian. The doors to the barn were shut. The two animals circled the barn, searching for the burrows, preferably uninhabited. Mrs. Murphy looked up. The Dutch door of a stall was partially open, flapping in the gentle breeze. "I'll try it." Mrs. Murphy squatted down, paused a second, and then sprang upward, reaching the slight opening before the top door banged back again. She dropped to the old hay on the stall floor. Walking over to the big doors, she pulled with her paw just enough to create a crack. Tucker wedged her nose in, and both cat and dog pushed. The big door creaked back on its overhead track just enough for the powerful dog to push herself inside. Tucker stopped. Tommy Van Allen's plane was still parked in the middle of the center aisle. "Well, I'll be." "You sniff around the plane," Mrs. Murphy ordered, "and I'll get in the cockpit." The tiger unleashed her claws, vaulting at a stall post. She shimmied up, reaching a massive crossbeam, and walked along the top of it until the white plane was directly underneath, 10 feet below. "That's a big drop, Murphy." "I know." Murphy stared down at the wing, backed up a bit, then jumped off the beam. She hit the wing with a thud, sliding a little in the process and leaving red clay marks to disturb the pristine whiteness. "You okay?" the dog called. "Yes, but it's slick." The cat tiptoed to the edge of the cockpit. She easily opened the door as the handle was large and turned down, and the door was slightly ajar. Then she hopped inside, leaving the door hanging wide open. The odor of old leather filled her nostrils. "See anything?" Tucker called up. "Lots of dials and a throttle." "Blood?" "No, squeaky clean." Tucker, somewhat disappointed, returned to the task of sniffing around the plane. The odor of gas killed other scents. Mrs. Murphy poked at knobs, put one eye close to the throttle to see if anything had fallen into the slide path. She hopped around unwittingly, leaving muddy paw prints as her signature. Finding nothing, she readied to jump back down on the wing. Then, on the pilot's side door, she noticed a leather pocket like a map pocket on an old car door. She reached over, but couldn't quite get to it. She reached again and caught the very inside of the pocket, slowly moving the door toward her. She didn't want to shut the door, since the inside handle might not open easily. With one paw, claws out, she pulled open the pocket, while with the other paw, she held the door from closing. She fished in the pocket, pulling out the only thing in there, a folded-over map used so many times the creases were worn to nothingness. She grabbed it between her teeth, hopping onto the wing. She skidded on the flap side of the wing and launched herself to the soft center turf below. The two friends walked to the door, squeezed through, and opened the map in the moonlight. Mrs. Murphy carefully sat on the edge of the map so it wouldn't blow away. She loved the smooth feel of paper under her bottom. "What is it?" Tucker strained to make sense of the colors and lines. "Your face is too close. Step back." Oh, she did as instructed. "It's the U.S. Geological Survey map for the county. Pretty colors. Can you carry this back home? I'll hide it in Simon's house." "Why not leave it here?" "Because I think someone will come back for it." "Tommy?" "No, Tommy's dead." "How do you know that?" "I don't. It's cat intuition. I saw two people leave this plane. One had to be Tommy, a very tall person, but it was too raining and fog was swirling down, and I couldn't get a good look. Plus, I was already at the creek and had climbed up in the oak tree. The other person was short. Well, anyone would be short compared to Tommy Van Allen. Tucker, put your paw on both corners. If I can look down at this map, maybe I can see better. The cat drew herself to her full height, glancing down. Pieces are outlined. Maybe an old flight path? These are more like squares and a big outline outside that. Was there a flight plan up there? No. Why would two people take off, not telling anyone, and land here? And now one of them is missing. I haven't a single idea, but they planned to put the plane in the barn. I really think they did. You don't think the fog and bad weather drove them down? There are better places to land than Tally's old airstrip. There are lots of airstrips in Albemarle County. And to come down here, you have to shoot between Little Yellow Mountain and that ridge we crossed. It's not threading a needle, but you have to be pretty darn good, especially with the downdraft and winds that swirl around mountains. Whoever landed here in the fog was a hell of a pilot. Well, Tommy was good, but it wasn't Tommy. I saw him hop out and open the doors. At least I think that was Tommy. How will we get Harry over here, Tucker wondered. Only if she visits Tally or if she rides over. She hardly ever comes this way because the Second Creek crossing changes every time there's a storm. And who knows how long it will take the humans to find this plane. If Rick Shaw is logical, he'll eventually search each private airstrip. That's true. I wonder when he'll get to that. The cat noticed Mars pulsating red in the sky. I do believe whoever flew that plane will be back for this map. There have to be thousands of survey maps of the county. This one isn't valuable. Well, if it has fingerprints on it, it is. Mrs. Murphy studied the map again, paying attention to the hand-drawn lines. That's it. What? The big outline. It's the watershed. I remember from the map posted on the bulletin board at the commission meeting. I was up on the desk. I could see it clearly. So now we're at chapter 10. Do I have to do this? Harry leaned against the truck door. Yes. Miranda offered no hope of escape. I'll take Mrs. Murphy, Pewter, and Tucker home with me. No one will miss supper. If you take them home, you'll be late. All right. Harry climbed up into the old Superman blue 1978 Ford half-ton. Good luck, Mom, Mrs. Murphy saucily called out. She needed more than luck. She needed the patience of Job. Lifeline, held in the basement of the Lutheran church, provided support and direction for many seekers. Harry thought she had a direction enough, and as for support, she was raised not to broadcast her troubles. The adherence of this self-discovery process really surprised her, though. Ridley Kent, Cynthia Cooper, of all people, Dr. Hayden McIntyre, Larry Johnson's much younger partner, and several other people she'd known for years were among the crowd that filled the church basement. Boom Boom stuck next to her. The leader of the group, Bill Oster, worked at the University of Virginia Library. It had taken years of training for him to become a group leader. Each of us carries negative programming, negative information. The purpose of Lifeline is to clear that away so you can more fully experience the people around you and so you can more fully experience yourself. It's strange, isn't it? We are raised to practice good manners, we're taught how to treat other people, but we're not taught how to treat ourselves. The first task, therefore, is to establish a proper relationship with yourself. Boom Boom beamed with each word, casting significant glances at Harry. By the end of the evening, Harry couldn't say she'd heard anything silly, but she couldn't say the program was for her either. By nature, a self-contained person, she found the idea of exploring emotions, or even cleansing herself of negativity in front of others, to be an anathema. Still, she had to admit the ideas were worth considering. "I hope you'll return," Bill Oster warmly said. "You are a motivating leader," Harry, manners to the fore, complimented him. "And that means you won't return." He believed in constant honesty, which at times had a touch of ruthlessness to it. No, Harry hated to be direct in this fashion. It violated everything she'd been taught all her life. "It's not for me, but I think it's a good process." He clasped both her hands in his. "Well, if you change your mind, you know where to find us. We start new groups every 6 weeks. Boom Boom, disappointed in Harry, said, "Would you go if I weren't part of the group? I'm training to lead a group, but I can put it off for another 6 weeks." "It has nothing to do with you, Boom. Eventually, you overcome your discomfort level. You have to want to, and I don't. Whatever my deepest inner flaws are, I've learned to live with them." That's not the point. Boom Boom felt rejected because Lifeline was rejected. Cynthia joined them. "Boom, Harry is the stubbornest woman I've ever met. Neither of us can talk her into anything. Besides, she kept her promise." "That's true." Boom Boom offered her hand to Harry, who graciously shook it. "Thanks, Boom. Will we ever be friends?" I don't know, but our relationship has improved." Harry was truthful. Ever since Boom Boom's fling with Fair, the very sight of her set Harry's teeth on edge, but she was able to have a civil conversation with her now. A somewhat mollified Boom Boom Craycroft bid them good night. "You're the last person I'd think to find in a group like this," Harry confided to Coop. "Well, Ridley Kent is a big surprise, too." "I was getting jaded," Cynthia softly replied. "I see liars, drunks, irresponsible shits day in and day out. The drug dealers are a real treat, too. I was losing my faith in the goodness of people." "Well, I guess you would." "I thought this can't hurt me, and I might even learn something." "Good for you. No wonder I haven't seen you around much lately." "Actually, this is my first night. I've been on overload because the spring flu is moving through the force. In the last month, we've had 2 or 3 people out each week, and I'm pulling a lot of overtime." "Well, when things even out, come on over. We'll have a Chinese and video night." "Great, I'll bring the Chinese." Harry walked Coop to her car and then hopped into her truck. As she walked through Miranda's door, she smelled freshly fried liver, not exactly her favorite. Miranda sat at the table, the animals eating from places set for them. Sheepishly, Harry's hostess said, "They're the only creatures I can ever get to eat fried liver with me." "Well, I'll eat fried liver, but you don't really like it." "I wouldn't buy it in a restaurant, but everything you make tastes good." "I happen to have a piece left smothered in my special sauce with caramelized onions. And I know you love Brussels sprouts, a hint of molasses and lemon with them, but only a hint." As Harry ate this unexpected feast, Miranda peppered her with questions to satisfy herself that Lifeline wasn't leading people away from the scriptures. "Didn't mention the Bible. It's about personal growth, not religion." "Well, the two are connected." "Now, Miranda, I am not capable of a theological discussion. You take that up with Herbie. After all, the meetings are held in his church." "Well, people need the good book." Lifeline and Christianity are not mutually exclusive. A Brussels sprouts melted in her mouth. "The essence of Christianity is forgiveness." "Well, I think in Lifeline they teach you to forgive yourself." This thought hit Miranda like a ping-pong ball. It bounced off, but left a small impression. She would have to ponder it. "Seems you got more out of Lifeline than you realize." Chapter 11. Pewter, wild-eyed and puffed up, charged through the animal flap at the back of the post office. "Come quick!" Without arguing, Mrs. Murphy rushed outside, closely followed by Tucker. Pewter's short, furry tail disappeared around the corner to the front of Market Shiflet's grocery store. She leapt onto the fruit display outside the front door. Mrs. Murphy followed, finding herself amid the bananas display. "Ever see a banana spider?" she hissed. She soon forgot about the furry spiders hiding among the yellow bunches because inside, Sir H. Vane Tempest and Archie Ingram were shouting at the top of their lungs. A small crowd was gathered, including Market Shiflet, who stood beside the screen front door of his store. It was still too cool for air conditioning. "You've forgotten," Vane Tempest sputtered. "I've forgotten nothing." "You've forgotten who your friends are." Vane Tempest stepped closer to Archie, who suddenly hit him on the left cheek. He lashed out so quickly that Archie surprised both himself and the Englishman. Reeling backward, Vane Tempest lifted a soft hand to cover the red mark. Still in a fury, Archie taunted the old man. "You're the one who forgets, Vane Tempest, and it will catch up with you." Before the Englishman could lunge forward, a rattled Archie had backed out of the store, parting the gaggle of people. Harry stuck her head out of the post office since the shouts had penetrated even there. She stuck it back in. The altercation was none of her business. Besides, people were soon pouring into the post office, all telling their version of the tale. Mrs. Murphy moved over to sit on the apples. Friendship is like a love affair. When it sours, poof! Ours won't. Pewter rubbed her cheek against the slender tiger. "We're cats, we're smarter than people," Murphy purred. She liked attention, and she especially liked being groomed. "Don't you wonder what's happened?" "It's the rock quarry," Pewter said. "That was ages ago," Mrs. Murphy remembered. "Some people are on slow fuses," Pewter remarked. Tucker stepped away from the fruit stand to better see the cats. "Bet there's a woman involved." "Maybe," Mrs. Murphy noted. Who would go out with H. Van Tempest apart from his very expensive wife? A puff-adder, that man. Pewter likened people to animals. "Who said it was H. Vane?" Tucker winked. "Gross," came out Tiger's tart comment. They walked over to the post office, going by the front door as yet another resident opened it. Sir H. Vane Tempest was loudly explaining his side of the story. "He's becoming irrational. He thinks everyone is against him. Even Eileen has noticed it. I spoke to her last week about Archie's personality disintegration." Eileen was Archie's wife. "It's difficult being on the county commission when opinion in this county is so divided," Miranda offered. "He asked for the job," Big Mim tartly observed. "Well, he won't have it for long," Little Mim said, which made her mother smile slightly. "Ever since the storms this winter when Sugar Hollow washed, the terrible flooding, he's not been the same," Vane Tempest said. "Can't be that," Miranda shrewdly noticed. "You don't think so either." Vane Tempest eyed her. Well, whatever has come over him has been intensifying since that time. I was the man's friend when no one wanted to hear about preserving the environment." Tucker interrupted. "He's sure tooting his own horn." "Quiet," Harry reprimanded her. Vane Tempest continued. "He's argued with everyone. Eileen says he hardly speaks to her when he comes home at night. He goes into his den and pores over papers and maps. And yes, I am angry that he lobbied the commission to deny permission for me to establish a rock quarry, but I'll get over it." "Will he?" Mim sharply said. "I didn't act that badly," Vane Tempest defended himself. "He did." "Well, he certainly did today," Little Mim played with the soft leather weave of her Bottega Veneta bag. "You should have offered him a share of the business when his term expired." Mim surprised everyone with her comment and then added, "Really, people, how do you think anything gets done here?" "That's a bribe," Miranda said firmly. No, you don't ask him to vote your way. You simply offer him a job when his term expires. It's done in Washington on an hourly basis, and the pity of it is, it isn't done well. We'd have better government if it were. Cynic, Van Tempest smiled. Realist, Mim tapped her foot on the polished wooden floors that were polished with use. People in government can't make money while they're in government, so you must use your position to develop contacts for when your term expires. No one said a word for a minute. Mim had a way of boring straight to the heart of a problem. And the truth was that Archie, a small printer by trade, didn't make much money. The county commissioner post carried no stipend, and the time it sucked up diverted his attention from a business that could have been more lucrative. He'd never give up his business. Van Tempest betrayed his own thoughts, which was exactly what Mim had hoped to achieve by being forthright. Being an Englishman, he couldn't have known she was baiting him. The Virginians knew exactly what she was doing, which was why they fell silent after she spoke. Eileen could run it. Little Mim worked well with her mother, despite her irritation with her overbearing parent. She runs it anyway. Archie lacks the common touch, and a good printer has to be able to deal with people who have little idea of how long it takes to print anything or what it costs. You're right. He ought to turn the business over to Eileen. And as for why he wanted to be a county commissioner, well, he has his pet concerns. But truthfully, he wanted the power. Van Tempest cracked a knuckle, revealing his rare nervousness. Ugh, human beings waste time, Peter blandly noted. Everyone has to express an opinion, and then everyone else has to rebut it or add to it. I say shut up and get the job done. Huh, they can't, Mrs. Murphy shrewdly observed. Most cats are roughly equal, if you think about it. I mean, we can all jump about the same height. We run about the same speed. They are very different from one another. Their talents are wildly different. The only way they can survive is to talk to one another and reach a consensus. All herd animals are like that, and we're not herd animals. Neither am I, Tucker protested. You're a pack animal, same difference. I am an individual. I never said you weren't an individual, Tucker, but dogs tend to run in packs, and they kill in packs. I herd cows, sheep, anything. I'm not a hunting dog. You're an argumentative one. Mrs. Murphy flicked her tail. Tucker is the exception that proves the rule. Peter didn't feel like a fight. Hearing Archie and H. Vane was enough for her. Van Tempest threw back his shoulders. I can't talk to Arch, obviously, but I do think some of you can. Maybe you can cast oil upon the waters. Yet man is born into trouble as the sparks fly upward. Miranda quoted Job, chapter 5, verse 7. What's that supposed to mean? The Englishman mildly inquired. I don't know, it just popped into my head. Mrs. H. laughed at herself. Just then, the Reverend Herbert Jones pushed open the door. Everyone stopped to stare at him. What do you think? Herb asked. He stood there, shoulders back, head erect, wearing his Confederate sergeant major's uniform with the red facings of the artillery. Then everyone started talking at once. Odd, Tucker said. Why? The cats asked. It's like the dead coming to life, isn't it? The Reverend Herbert, this is chapter 12. The Reverend Herbert Jones, accustomed as he was to confessions of his flock, still managed to be surprised by them. He ushered Archie Ingram into his cozy library, where Herb's two magnificent cats, Lucifer and Elocution, snoozed on a bearskin rug before the fire. Herb had shot the bear as a boy. Lost in the woods, he had riled the normally passive animal, although he didn't know how he had done it. All he knew was that a black bear was charging him, and luckily he had his .22 rifle, but it was too light to bring down the animal. He stood his ground, waited, and then fired, hitting the beast in the eye and killing it instantly. And then he started to shake all over. His daddy, thanks to the gunfire, found him. Archie Ingram took a seat near the fire. "I'll be brief, Herb. I'm having an affair. My wife suspects, and sooner or later this will blow up in my face. Even though we drifted apart, I know I have a good wife, but I can't seem to help myself. And the strange thing is, I don't feel guilty." Excuse me. Herb poured a small glass of port, Dow's 1972, for Archie and for himself. Poured in a fine cigar with a perfect finish to an evening. He'd sworn off cigars, missing them terribly, but he still enjoyed his evening glass of port. Stashed away in his small wine cellar, he had a bottle of Cockburns from 1937. He was saving it for special occasions, but he could never figure out what would be that special. He held the glass in his hand, admiring the ruby color, which came to life as the firelight flickered through it. "Archie, we've known each other a long time." "Yes, we have. How old are you now?" 43. Herb sipped, leaned back in his chair, and thought a while. "Ever think how wine is made? Peasants step on grapes?" Herb laughed. "I guess we could say the grapes are bruised and tortured, but out of this suffering, combined with time, comes a liquid of refinement and comfort. I enjoy port, you know. I've got bottles ranging from the recent, say 10 years ago, all the way back to 1937. Port improves with age. Men do too. You're being bruised now. Except I'm the one committing the sin. You hurt yourself more by sinning than you hurt anyone else. Some people never realize that. You're at a vulnerable age. Yeah, youth is checking out and leaving no forwarding address." Herb laughed. "It's a hard time for both men and women. Takes us differently, though. So many marriages break up. Well, I don't want to lose my wife." "Then you'd better lose the other woman." Sweat poured down Archie's face. "I know that. Each time I see her, I tell myself this is it. Break it off and then..." "Younger?" "A little," Archie admitted. A rueful smile covered the minister's expansive face. "You heard that feminist joke, when God made man, she was practicing. I don't think of myself as a feminist, but I agree with that one." He paused. "Arch, there's not a man alive who hasn't been torn between two women at one time in his life. And I expect there isn't a woman who hasn't been torn between two men at one time in her life. Pray for guidance. Consider what has drawn you to the other woman and what has drawn her to you. There may be answers there that surprise you. Should I tell Eileen?" "I can't answer that." He shook his head. "I don't know." Archie drained his glass. "It's a crazy time. You've ruffled a lot of feathers lately. I always say it's easy to be an angel if no one ruffles your feathers." Archie carefully placed his glass on the coaster. "Everybody wants something, don't they?" "Most times, yes. Quid pro quo makes sense in the business world, but it has no meaning in the spiritual world. God's love is unconditional." Archie smiled weakly. He wanted to believe that, but he didn't. No matter, talking to Herb had helped him. He now felt he could sort this out, but somehow it was going to take time. As Herb opened the door for Archie and waved goodbye, he noticed how cool it was. May could be a tricky month. And that takes us to chapter 13, and we will continue next week. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.